It's the same boat as before, Guzalia, where I could ask you 100 questions if no one else is asking questions. I'm really curious. My experience initially with this whole awakening was through Tantra, and by accident meaning like the energy. I discovered the energy before I understood what I was working with. I'm curious about just generally everything. Like, I know that you say you don't use Tantra a lot, like you don't use that language a lot, but if you were to use it a little bit, or like what I'm curious in how it ties together with everything else that you might be doing with the shamanic journeying, with the even hypnotherapy, because I understand everything to be energy. And as that energetic potential moves, then it's all, and the more we experience the creative potential of that energy inside of us and allow it to expand, and then whether it's in connection with a partner or ourself, like a lot of it is this really pleasurable experience. Like, so I'm just open to hearing anything you'd have to say on that.
It's very easy to implement with any modality because very straightforward work with energies.
Yeah.
And also, I like the realism of it. Many spiritual traditions teach us to denounce the physicality, the material world, whether it's relationship or intimate relationships, or even finances. Every tradition frowns upon all of it. It's dirty, it's wrong, it makes you less spiritual. Tantra does the opposite. It teaches us not to escape the real world, but enjoy it. I don't know whether I answered your question or not, Andra.
I had no particular question. I just wanted to hear you. I just wanted to hear you talk about it. So that's great.
People come because they're hurt, they're in pain, or something's really wrong with their life. And it's great to have all sorts of tools to implement. Then you have an array of tools and you can pick something to work with each problem. But why I like Tantra, because, for example, with hypnosis, we work straight with the mind, right? Although we can implement this energy work just by having clients imagining, but still we're working with the mind. And if the person is in very, very bad shape, very tensed, locked in, sometimes hypnosis doesn't work. You need to have repeated sessions, little by little, you take little baby steps. But if we cannot, reach the mind quickly enough, we can work through the body and achieve the same results. That's why I like Tantra. I mean, I like everything, but each person needs a different key.
Yeah, I studied tarot under a psychologist who's written 6 books on tarot and psychology and the Jungian archetypes. And it's still the area of the mind, but because the archetypes are so ubiquitous and everyone, identifies with the archetypes, I've been able to, for some people who are open to it, utilize tarot. And in tarot, so the river of life in the soul retrieval, and now the other little bit that you gave us, it's so powerful because fear. I teach everybody, like the Course in Miracles, to bring love into your heart, because you can't have love and fear at the same time. And I give that to everybody, whether they hire me or not. And I'm reading the Tibetan book on living and dying, and unless you plan for a good death, it will steal your life. You can't have a good life unless you've planned for a good death, because it's just a transition. But what the river of life, because I've really expanded my use of it after I went through your course, because to reduce the fear, when you can convey to them that they're a drop in the river of life, and at the end of the river, it's not death, and there's nothing to be afraid of, because then you become a part of the sea of existence, right? So a drop in the river of life, and you can't go backwards. The river flows continuously and to the end of the river, but the end of the river is not an end. It's a new beginning in as you merge with the sea of existence. And
Mhm.
so that I've really, after your course, I've really expanded my use of the river of life, and it's so interchangeable. Like you said, with the modalities, I don't do tantra, but I do tarot, and you see how it's like what I learned in your course is so applicable across the modalities, and I'm always finding new ways to kind of
Mhm.
plug it in because it's ancient wisdom. And we're in a like with this whole, what's going on around us with the health thing that's going on around us. I think allopathic medicine is really going to suffer as a result of this experience. And people are going to turn to us in greater numbers to help them with the more ancient wisdom, because the the desire for a complex technological chemical therapy that everyone has turned to, that somebody else pays for, that old paradigm is not fulfilling people's needs like it once did. And we're going to have a larger role to play. So I love how what I learned from you is transferable across many modalities. When I have clients who present with autoimmune, I immediately ask them what was going on in their life when it started, and no one's ever asked them that. The doctors collect the collection of their symptoms, put it in a bucket of autoimmune, and give them pills. And I go to the emotional experience, because what they've done is they've somatized their emotional pain into their body, and you can tell where it manifests. In
Mhm.
their legs, they can't run away from their problems. In the arms, they can't fight their way out. Their back, they're carrying the weight of the world. And their neck, the stomach problems, they can't digest what the universe is giving them. It's Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is always the best. And listen, I was a lobbyist for the California Medical Association. I represented physicians. I know hundreds of them. Their training is rigid and pharmacopoeia. I make fun of some of the younger ones who I'm friends with, because chemical medicine is only 100 years old, and yet and shamanism and indigenous modalities are ancient. So which doctors are the witch doctors?